The fat girl of more than 500 pounds wanted to go to the pool to swim naked, but because the splash was too big when diving, the female classmate covered her head with a net, and in the face of these people who often bullied her, the fat girl was very scared, so she could only dive into the water to dodge. But when she came up again, she found out the clothes were all taken away by her classmates, and at this time the fat girl saw that her best friend was still on the shore. She quickly opened her mouth and asked the other party for help, but she didn't expect her best friend to take away her only remaining bath towel. But the cold fat girl had to wear a swimsuit and run home helplessly. Although she tried to avoid pedestrians, there were still little hooligans passing by and teasing her. They honked the horn while remorseful and even molested her. After this incident, the fat girl suffered a lot of humiliation. In order to avoid running into others again, the fat girl had to choose to go home on a detour. But not long after leaving, she saw that the classmate who bullied her just now was crawling on the ground covered in blood, and the fat girl was frightened, so she quickly pretended not to see it and continued to walk forward. But the car behind her suddenly started in the next second, and then drove straight towards the fat girl. The man in the car stopped the car after looking at her, and when the fat girl stopped and looked at the car, a bloody hand suddenly appeared from the car, and it seemed that it was her best friend who didn't save her just now, and the driver was staring at her through the rearview mirror. The fat girl instantly felt a burst of coldness. At this time the people in the car also saw the fat girl. She desperately slapped the glass and wanted to ask for help, but at this time, the fat girl was almost frightened and urinated, and she didn't dare to move, let alone save people. Seeing the driver open the car door and wanted to get down, the fat girl felt that she was going to be finished. But I didn't expect that the other party just threw out a bath towel, and the fat girl also understood the other party's intentions. She raised her left hand to the man to thank him, and then the driver kicked the accelerator and went away, and only the miserable screams of her best friend were in the air, and the fat girl wrapped the bath towel sent by the man, and went home. The strong fear made her unable to ease her mind for a long time, and the tragic situation when her best friend asked for help kept coming to her mind, and after repeated entanglements in her heart, the fat girl finally decided to call the police. But when she turned on the computer, she found that her best friend was in the circle of friends posted today, scolded that her family was a fat pig, and when she saw this, the fat girl couldn't help it anymore. She angrily covered the computer and decided not to care about it anymore. But that night, her best friend's mother actually came to the door. It turned out that she had been unable to contact her daughter, so she wanted to find the fat girl who usually had a good relationship and ask about the situation. However, the fat girl's mother not only ignored it, but angrily drove the other party away, because she also saw the circle of friends who abused her daughter, and saw her best friend's mother leave, and the fat girl's hanging heart was put down. But at this moment she suddenly remembered that her mobile phone was still in the other party's hand, which would be found by the police. She will definitely be in big trouble, so she secretly took her father's mobile phone and returned to the path during the day to look for it, and the fat girl slowly found a wood. She dialed her number again, and sure enough, she heard the mobile phone ringing not far away. However, just when the fat girl just picked up the mobile phone, the kidnapper during the day actually appeared again, and the other party didn't say a word, so he grabbed the fat girl and walked behind the wall. But he didn't want to hurt the fat girl, but to remind her that someone was coming. Don't make a sound. It turned out that the family of the kidnapped classmate also looked for me according to the location of the mobile phone, and I came here. But the classmate's family searched nearby, only found the half-amputated finger. The classmate's mother couldn't stand the stimulation and collapsed on the spot. She thought that her daughter must have been killed. The fat girl took advantage of the chaos under the cover of the kidnappers and fled home. But the next day, the classmate's mother took me on her again. It turned out that someone saw several of them together yesterday, so the other party felt that the fat girl must know something. Just when the fat girl was at a loss, her mother happened to arrive here, and the mother thought that her daughter would definitely not lie, and she planned to take the fat girl away after speaking. But I didn't expect the other party to move directly, until the police came here to persuade them to leave. The fat girl was taken to the bureau for questioning. The police hoped that the fat girl could provide clues. After all, this is related to several lives. The fat girl had no choice but to tell what happened yesterday. She said that she was indeed bullied by the other party in the pool, but she never saw them again after that. But the police obviously didn't believe it. He just looked at the fat girl's expression and knew what the other party was hiding. But just when he wanted to continue to exert pressure, the fat girl's mother couldn't stand it and interrupted the conversation. She said that her daughter is still a minor, and she has the right to remain silent without a lawyer, and left the police station with the fat girl. But as soon as she got home, her mother warned the fat girl that she was not allowed to go out during this time. It turned out that she had long known that the disappearance of her classmate must be related to her daughter, because when she collected her clothes during the day, she saw the strange bath towel, and it was stained with a lot of blood, and her mother took out the bath towel and asked the fat girl what was going on. If she did something bad impulsively one day, the fat girl looked at her mother without saying a word. But the more this happened, the more excited her mother became. The voice of the voice became louder and louder, and finally the fat girl's long pent-up anger completely exploded. She shouted that she hated them, everyone in the door. I really wanted them all to die. And when she heard this, her mother was also angry, and she was about to do it with a slap, but the robber appeared again and stopped her. It turned out that this man had been hiding nearby, and it seemed that he wanted to secretly protect the fat girl, but at this time, he obviously misunderstood the meaning of the fat girl. I really want to help her kill everyone. The man thought he was annoying and wanted to kill him. The fat girl was frightened and hurriedly grabbed the man, but he didn't expect the other party to be unexpectedly obedient, and then pulled the fat girl and left here, and the two just walked out of the house, and a group of little hooligans laughed at the fat girl as usual. But I didn't expect the man to be more fierce. Without saying a word, starting the car and crashing into them, the fat girl at this time was both scared and moved, because she had never met a man who was willing to stand up for her. The fat girl looked at the familiar ornaments in the car, and they were all things she threw away. The man also deliberately handed her her favorite snacks. At this time the fat girl finally realized that the fierce man in front of her seemed to like herself, but when the warm smell was thick in the car, a bull suddenly appeared on the road ahead, and the man couldn't dodge and hit it. Since the fat girl has been unconscious, the man had to carry her back to the warehouse, and then went out to look for medicine, but not long after the man left, the fat girl woke up from the coma, and she didn't know where she had arrived in a daze. So she looked around, but when she just passed through the two iron gates, she found that the classmate who had bullied her before was hung in the air. It turned out that they were all alive, and the fat girl immediately stepped forward to save them, but she couldn't untie the rope after tossing for a long time, and her best friend hurriedly asked the fat girl where the police were. But the fat girl couldn't answer. They realized that the fat girl didn't call the police at all, so they went crazy and scolded the fat girl for being a stupid pig, and the fat girl helped them untie the rope while explaining, but because of the fear that her hands were shaking, she couldn't get rid of her best friend's angry scolding. How could she be so stupid? It's not as good as a pig. Hearing this, the fat girl is also completely angry. She threw her best friend out in a fit of anger, and now the other party finally realized that the fat girl is no longer a stupid pig that they can bully at will, but the only hope that can save them. At this time, the man suddenly came back from outside. He saw that the fat girl had discovered everything, so he handed the knife to the fat girl and asked her to finish off these people who had been bullying her, and the fat girl gritted her teeth and walked to her classmates, but after repeated entanglements in her heart, the fat girl roared angrily, and instead caught the knife into the man's chest. The man who fell into the park did not hate the fat girl, but gently stretched out his hand to touch her. At this time the fat girl regretted it in her heart, but the man couldn't live anymore. The desperate fat girl slowly picked up the shotgun on the ground and looked at it, without hesitation, and looked at the classmates as 2 shots. However, she didn't kill them, but shot the rope and saved their lives. To be honest, this ending is really unpleasant. Shouldn't the violent person be punished? And the fat girl's approach, I personally think it's not kindness in her heart, but a sign of cowardice. Maybe she hopes that after this incident, the 2 classmates who escaped death can change their ways, but she doesn't know that some people once they get used to bullying and change their ways, maybe it's really just a fantasy. Friends, what do you think?